The views and opinions expressed in the following paid program are those of the host, callers, and guests, and do not necessarily reflect the views or positions of this station, its management, or owners.
Securities offered through Kestra Investment Services, LLC. Kestra IS, member FINRA SIPC. Investment advisory services offered through Kestra Advisory Services, LLC. Kestra AS, an affiliate of Kestra IS. Capital Advisory Group, Inc. is not affiliated with Kestra IS or Kestra AS. Neither Kestra IS nor Kestra AS provide legal or tax advice and are not certified public accounting firms.
You work hard for your money. For the next hour, you're going to learn how to keep what's yours. Capital Advisory Group presents Keep What's Yours. Here are Josh Gilbert and Jeff Zufall.
Hello and welcome to Keep What's Yours with Jeff Zufall. My name is Josh Gilbert. I am sitting here with Jeff Zufall. He is the Senior Tax Strategist and Wealth Advisor with Capital Advisory Group. We all knew that, though. But it is a new year. So It's time for us, Jeff, to kind of start all over again.
That's right. It's a brand new year, start fresh.
That doesn't mean that we need to, redo our HSA or redo our FSA or...
Well, no, because usually those you've had to claim or do your enrollment, by November, December of last year to say, hey, this is what I'm going to do for this year. And again, an HSA, if you have an HSA and your employer funds a little bit of money for you, when we get to the end of the year, you still have the ability to zero it in, to max it out, and you typically can do that all the way up until filing of your tax return or March 15th, whichever is sooner. So if you have an HSA and you only put $3,000 into it over the year, you can use it as an IRA, fund the extra money. You can go either $7,000 or $83,000 if you're single or family plan, and fund it right there at the time of doing your return.
And this is kind of what we'll touch on later on in the show, but these are the things that you need to start back up again this year. You say, what did I do last year? Mm-hmm. How can I max it out even more?
Exactly.
Or what are the other things out there? I maxed out my FSA. This is me talking. We've maxed out our FSA for Finn's school. Is there anything else out there I can be doing? Because you know what? I'm not going to say this lightly, but for my little pittance that I have and my little plot of land that we have, I've got a little extra money this year to do something with, And it's like, my wife's, well, you've got credit card bills. Those can
they'll go away.
Yeah. I've got a little something I could do. My paychecks are bigger than I expected. What more can I be doing?
So the concept would be we're a fresh year, increase your 401k, IRA, HSA, whatever you're using for your retirement vehicle, increase it by 1%, maybe 2%, and then see where your paycheck is.
So I bumped it up last year. I bumped it up the year before that because that's what I'm sitting at 7% for my Roth and 7% for my pre-tax.
Bump it one more time for this year.
Again?
Yes.
Bump it again?
Yes.
As long as it doesn't
take food off the table, and that's the concept. Some people say, well, I'll start with 10%. It's way too, and typically if you haven't done it in the past, it's too much, honestly. Start with 2, 3, 4%, work your way up over time.
I filled in for McGraw a couple of weeks ago, last week.
You had to get up at like 4 in the morning.
Oh, it was brutal. But I'll tell you, that show, easy as pie. You talk for 4 minutes and then you go to traffic. And you talk for another 3 minutes and then you go to news. It hosts itself, but I got a little bigger paycheck.
There you go.
And then I looked at it, and then I looked, what was that? This is what I got paid, and then I looked, what did I actually clear?
Exactly.
And I said, where'd all that go? So you go up, and that's what you're supposed to do with every paycheck stub that you get.
Exactly.
We still get ours on paper. It's direct deposited.
Yeah.
Some people get theirs online.
Yeah.
Look at it.
Exactly.
Because I was like, where's all this money going? And, yes, a big chunk did go to taxes.
Yeah.
But as I scrolled down, a lot of it went to myself.
Exactly. Came right back, 401k. Either you're doing a Roth or a pre-tax, one or the other. That's money back in your pocket. And pay yourself first is the concept.
So at the end of the day, I was like, where'd all my money go? And then I realized, well, I'm paying myself first.
Exactly.
And that's Jeff's philosophy. Not only is it keep what's yours, you should write a second book called Pay Yourself First.
If these Trump tax laws expire in 2025, there'll be version 2 and 3.
Yeah, we're going to have, because we got some new
stuff coming.
New stuff coming. And we already have. We talk in the news, we already have some new stuff that's coming. And the Trump tax cuts haven't even sunsetted yet. But we'll get into that as well. But the idea is that it's a new year. It's your chance to reconfigure your withholding.
Yes.
It's your chance to set up an HSA and FSA. It's your chance to increase, what you're paying yourself ahead of time by, doing an extra percent here or an extra percent there. It comes out of your paycheck. You don't even see it. You don't even miss it.
Yeah. Poof.
And then you can go into Jeff at Capital Advisory Group, CapitalAdvisoryGrp.com. Go to the website, get an appointment scheduled. You can go into Jeff and say, I've maxed this out, I've maxed that out. I found, for the first time in my life, I have more money than, I hate to say it, more money than I know what to do with.
Yeah.
Because, again, if my wife is listening, she'll say, we just, built a fireplace and we owe the bank some money.
That's right.
That. But
it's technicality.
That's a technicality. Of course, there's things that I could pay for. But if I've got a little bit of extra money, what more can I be doing with it?
So if you have children, you do a 529. So the concept is you don't take a tax deduction for it, but you do get the money that goes in after tax. But the state of Missouri will give you a 5% state tax credit for any contribution that you put in up to $16,000. So hypothetically, state's 5%, state tax, depending upon where your state tax is. So first $16,000, you get a 5% state credit. So you get a little bit of a tax perk, if you want to call it that, but also that money then grows tax deferred, which means you don't pay any taxation on it.
That would be like a Roth.
Exactly, as long as it is used for educational purposes. So 529 can be used for private elementary school, $10,000 a year, private high school, college, typically trade schools, pieces of parts of room and board. If you're buying new computers for the child, iPads, different stuff like that. Could be tutors. All that kind of stuff comes from the 529 plan. Tax-free.
Right. And in a 401k, if I make money inside that, we talk about this all the time. I've got $100,000 in my 401k. Well,
that's pre-tax.
That's pre-tax. The government is going to come with their hand at some point.
Exactly. Pre-tax. So you've never paid tax on that money. So when you go to take it out, they're like, hey, you owe us some.
But when you dump something into a 529 or put it into a Roth, you've paid taxes on that already.
Yes.
So whatever it grows to be, that's all your money.
As long as it's used. So here's a caveat. The Inflation Reduction Act actually made a provision. Most people in 529s are scared to do it because they say, well, what if my child doesn't go to school? What if they get a free ride? What if they go into military? So on and so forth. So let's say that you start a 529 today. And what you're looking for is down the road to say, if I overfund this thing, how do I get my money back if we don't use it for school? Or, we can pass it down to other kids.
If I started now and I really overfund this thing, it could – who knows what school's going to be like when Finn gets there?
But $1 million a semester.
But
the rate we're running. But
if they did something about school costs and everything, and I've got $100,000 in there, and his schooling only costs $60,000.
Exactly. You got 40 left over.
What do I?
So the concept now is there's a new provision out there, and it states if you've overfunded a 529 plan, you could take whatever the amount. $6,000 basically for somebody under 49, and it can be converted from the 529 into a Roth IRA.
Just move it from one over the other.
It's a set of paperwork that you pull it from the 529, move it over, drop it into the Roth, and you could do that up to $35,000 lifetime. So the concept is if you had extra cash in a 529, you go, I'll just take it out and pay tax on it and penalty. No. convert it to the beneficiary or the child's Roth IRA, no questions asked. They don't have to have earned income for it either. So it's a brand new provision.
Great. It's like, hey, look, I saved a bunch of money for your school, but you did such a good job in high school that you got a bunch of scholarships
and rides. Yeah.
So now we got all this leftover money. Rather than pay penalties on it, I'm just, you know what? It was for your college, but you did so well that now I just saved up a bunch of money for your retirement.
Exactly. And again, the caveat to this, there's always a trick with the IRS. There's always this weird rule out there. The rule that it states is you have to have the 529 open for 15 years. And that's the only kicker. That's why I say open it now, start funding it. And we have people who've done that, expecting their child to go get a doctorate or, an MD. And they go, I'm done.
Yeah.
And
boy,
they never
that
go
4
back.
years was tough enough.
Yeah, and they never go back. They're good. And they have all this money left over.
Yeah.
So that's the question of the day. And then you slowly start to drag it out.
Frankly, if it's not for education, the last thing I want is to gift my son a whole bunch of money when he's 22 years old. I would feel much more comfortable having him set up for retirement.
Well, exactly. And again, remember this. So let's say that you started when your child was born, 1 or 2 or 3. You did it 15 years. They go to college. They're done with college. They're in their early 20s. You start to feed this money into a Roth. Guess what? When it's inside of a Roth, guess what? It's after-tax money.
And it grows tax deferred. I mean,
but you can also take out your original contribution to a Roth and not pay any tax.
So the basis, what I put in, let's just say last year I put $5,000 into my Roth. I didn't.
If you needed it,
right.
Your $5,000 you could take out at any time.
Whatever it grew over the course of 2, 3, 4 years, that would have to stay.
That has to stay
until
under
59 and a half.
5 years or 59 and a half, whatever's longer.
Yeah.
So typically
that
it's
has to
5
stay.
years or more.
But
Yeah.
I can take my basis up.
Yeah, it's your money.
It's not going to grow as fast.
Oh, no, yeah, you stunt the growth of it,
Yeah.
but you get your after-tax
Freezing,
dollars quick.
my future earnings. But if I need that cash for, an emergency
you
or
can
something,
pull it and do whatever you need to do with
interesting.
it.
So there are so many different things that you can do.
So in this setup where you have the 529, it's overfunded, parents funded it, you don't use it for college education, you start to roll these dollars over to a Roth. At some point in time, the child is going to buy a house, so they could reach into the Roth, pull the money out, use it for their down payment.
Yes. So they could use it for their retirement.
It's a long, drawn-out process to get it there, but it's the best way to do it.
I love it.
So,
and it feels good to think that I could start saving when he's 3.
Yeah.
And then when he's 59 and a half, you know how much that's grown
it's
in there?
It's a ton of money. If you take time value of money.
And he doesn't have to pay taxes on it.
Yeah. And it's all
wild.
Let me back up for a second with my disclaimer. As of tax laws today, no, you don't have to pay tax on it.
Right. Oh, okay. Of course.
Way down the future.
Ding, ding, ding. As of today.
Everybody listening, we'll probably, we'll never run into that.
Right.
But there is the possibility that, maybe a generation down the road, they adjust it and say, it's supposed to be tax-free, but if you are successful and you make more than, $80,000 a year, we're going to tax 2% of it or something goofy like that. They did it to Social Security, took maybe 4 or 5 generations to do that, but they ended up getting taxed on Social Security.
And you know what? People are going to be listening to this show 30 years from now, and they're going to say, what's Social Security?
So that ran out of money in 2025.
What are they talking about? So this makes me feel really good that I can, if I do have a little extra money, I can either put it towards, myself. I put it to, my wife would say, the fireplace.
Yeah,
or I
exactly.
Can say, you know what? Honey, look how much money I socked away for Finn's college.
It's too cold. You're not going to use a fireplace anyway. So
the gas is frozen. The lines are frozen on it. So these are the things that you can be doing, and we'll talk towards the end of the show as well, more planning tips for 2024. But think about it. Have you done the FSA yet for your kids' current schooling, like we have for our daycare? Have you done the 529 for their future schooling or for their future whatever?
Exactly.
You
don't know. The unknown is what you're planning for.
Just start socking it away, and if they use it for school, great. If they don't, then there's other things that you can do with it, and that's the point of this show. Is Jeff is here to say there are so many things you can be doing that you don't even know exist. You just opened my mind, and we've been doing this show for 2 or 3 years.
Yeah, exactly.
And then you come out with this nugget. What else are you hiding in there? I'm picking Jeff up by his ankles and shaking him upside down to see what other tax...
Two nickels fell out of my pocket.
Well, the nickels fell out, but the tax tips are pouring out. So he's full of it, and all you have to do is get an appointment on the books. Schedule an appointment, go in and see Jeff. Now is a great time because you do have to do your taxes. So let him do your taxes for you. But it's also a great time because you can start over, or you can start something that you didn't even know existed, and you can get a whole full 12 months worth of tax keepings. Some people call it tax savings, but this is keep what's yours.
Keepings.
Tax keepings. It's kept in your pocket, kept in your Roth, kept in your 401k, kept in your paycheck, and not going out to the federal government in the form of taxes. There is a subtitle to Jeff's book, Keep What's Yours. The subtitle is How to Leverage the New Tax Law to Create Unfair Advantage Over Your Competition. In this case, our competition is the IRS.
It's our friends at the state and IRS, yes.
It's the tax code, and it's not like we want to be at loggerheads with...
No. You don't want to fight them, but the rules are put out there. As long as we stay within the guardrails, you're perfectly fine.
Let's play by the rules and legally keep some of our money.
Exactly.
And keep as much as we possibly can. I always say this. I don't mind paying taxes. I just don't want to pay a penny more than what I have to. So
that you're legally obligated to.
There you go. We'll go to a commercial break, and when we come back, we will talk some news. There are, the Trump tax code, that they set up in 2017?
Yeah, started 2018.
That sunsets in 2025, a year from today. That sunsets, and whether the new administration or whoever gets elected in there, I think we're down to 3 now.
Yeah.
Haley, Trump, or Biden. Whoever gets into office in November gets to set the new tax code.
Yeah.
And they'll obviously have some wrangling with
and it's not by choice.
Yeah.
I mean, it's by design that they have to adjust it.
They could probably take a lot of what's in there now
and carry it forward.
Going, but they have to make a decision on something. So whoever gets into office gets to either keep the status quo or try to come up with a new tax code. So things will be changing, but in the meantime, things are already changing, and we'll tell you about those right after this. It is Keep What's Yours with Jeff Zufall, and we're telling you that the tax code changes all the time. How do I keep up with it? You don't. That's the thing. You don't. Even if you tried, you probably couldn't. So that's why you have Jeff on your side. 636-394-5524 or CapitalAdvisoryGrp.com. Keep What's Yours with Jeff Zufall right after this. Another segment.
The views and opinions expressed in the following paid program are those of the host, callers, and guests, and do not necessarily reflect the views or positions of this station, its management, or owners. Keep What's Yours continues with Josh Gilbert and Jeff Zufall.
Back on the show, back to Keep What's Yours. Jeff is here, and it is 2024, but there's already movement and talk about... now, when they changed the tax laws... They did it during COVID, and we got a lot of money for the child tax credit.
Yes.
And there were some other tax provisions that were put in during COVID. We were allowed to contribute to charities again.
Yes.
And then that went away. There was even some weird ones that were for businesses. If they wanted to take clients out to lunch, the restaurants were really struggling. So they were like, we want to get the restaurants going again, and let people write off a big chunk of lunch meetings and everything. But those, after the pandemic ended, and I say air quotes because, I just had COVID a couple of weeks ago. It's still out there, people.
It didn't end.
After the pandemic ended, they kind of took those back. And when they bring these out for us, let's just take the child tax credit. When they bring these out and say, we're going to give you more money because everybody's struggling during the pandemic, is that an amendment to the tax code, or is that do they have something that's like a temporary tax provision?
It'll be a provision that's put into the tax code, but here's the issue: is we're sitting, into January 24, tax season starts. First day to e-file is the 29th of January.
It's coming up.
And it's right around the corner. So there's a provision sitting out there that is going to give us an increased child tax credit. Not like it was through COVID.
So COVID, it was really inflated, almost double.
Yeah, it was like $3,200, $3,100 for a child under 7. And then I think it was $18,000 or $2,000 for a child between 7 and 17.
And as someone with a child under 7, I loved it.
Yes. And again, so you could either say, hey, I'll take it in monthly installments, I think from like July to December, or you could wait and take it on your tax return. When you filed your return, you got the huge refund.
But then they took it away.
And then they took it away and went back to normal.
And there was and normal being what it's been
historically 100 years or more. No.
Yeah, right.
The last 20 years or so.
Right. So most of the people listening now, if you've got kids that are in college or, it's whatever
you got the credit back there.
Yeah, you got it back then. It just went back to that. So there was wrangling. There was
still wrangling. So here, the worst job in America to be the first week of February is a programmer for a tax software company, because they're trying, as we speak, to make this adjustment to give us an enhanced child tax credit, and then to adjust some of the, I'll say, business tax credits that are on the books that have been adjusted over the last 2 years to enhance both of them. And the one
and would this be, though, because they're talking child tax credit, and my ears perk up because like I said, a child under 7.
Mm-hmm.
Would this be something going forward? Like, I'll talk to you next year?
Well, they're trying to make it for 2023 tax year.
So the taxes that I'm getting together now, don't get your.
If you have a child and they're under 18. Hang tight just a little bit.
Just hang on.
And the reason I say that is, let's say that next week they put this deal together and we get an enhanced child tax credit added to the tax rolls, and then some of these business adjustments. Before you file your 23, you got to wait and see, because one, it'll take them to put this in the law. Two, it takes a couple of days for somebody to interpret what they actually said and go, hey, this is how it should be coded, and then the coders have to build it in the software.
Oh, my gosh.
So if you file your return and then go, hey, I'm entitled to another $2,000 in a child tax credit, you have to amend your return and then go back through jump through the hoops, in a sense, to get your $2,000 back.
Of all the times of the year to make a tax law
this should have been done in December, and then at least we knew it going into it. And from a planning standpoint, you go, well, we got to get an extra X, coming in the door.
But they would do it retroactively.
They're talking retro 23 going forward.
Okay.
So it's an enhanced child tax credit. And then also one of the provisions is what's called bonus depreciation for businesses. So if you own a business.
Yeah, and in the news, child tax credit, I get. We all have kids, or most of us have kids. We all know what that is. And then they just said, and then business taxes. And
so
it's like, well, what does that mean?
So if you own a business, it's enhanced depreciation in a sense, or special depreciation if you want to call it that. So typically what they were trying to do is, over the last couple of years, they've taken this deduction, kind of decreased it. It was, if you owned a business and you bought equipment for your business, you could go to $1.2 million of expenses and you got to write off 100% of it the year that you purchased it. Even if it was November or December of the year, as long as you took possession of it. The twist to this is people then who own businesses go, hey, like Josh, you have your little side business going and you saw that, awesome Escalade, $120,000, and you go, hey, I buy it, and it becomes a business vehicle. Technically, yes, but what they've realized is it's luxury SUVs that they are excluding. They're not taking it away 100%, but they took it from 100% deduction, so you could literally buy it in the past, and it was $120,000. You took $120,000 write-off the year you put it in service. They've now knocked that to 80% 2 years ago, 60% 2023. And there is discussion now to bring it back.
Put it back to 100.
So put it back to 100. So basically that kind of gets people out buying stuff. And again, right, wrong, or indifferent, the original concept is if you were a contractor and you needed to go buy a $100,000 F-350, and you use it, it's a work truck. You're not going to drive around and go date night on it or anything like that. That's equipment. That's what the original law was designed for. And, if you're a printer and you have to buy $1 million printing press, you don't want to drag that out over from a, deduction standpoint or depreciation. You don't drag that over 7 years or 5 years. You want credit for it the year you buy it and take the deduction. So that's the concept. So they're attempting to bring this back, but we'll see.
I find it so interesting, like, the child tax credit, that pertains to everybody, and any politician that
and it did have
to,
income limitations. I don't know,
sure.
It's like $250 or $350. It started phasing out a little bit, but you still got it, or at least a piece of it.
I wonder which politicians were keyed in that much to say, hey, if we're going to bring the child tax credits back, let's bring back the tax credits on that F-250.
So apparently it's bipartisan, and it's Ron Wyden, who's a Democrat from Oregon, and it is Rep. Jason Smith. He's a Republican from Missouri, but I don't know where he's from in Missouri. Are the two that have spearheaded this, and apparently they've been talking for months, trying to work out all the details as they go forward. So,
and that was so interesting because we've talked before about how, the Build Back Better plan or the infrastructure plan, I don't remember which one it is, they had a child tax credit provision in there, and Joe Manchin, Democrat from West Virginia, was the one that said, I won't sign off on this if that child tax credit is in there.
So for whatever reason, he gave it and then changed his tune quickly, and is still adamantly against it. So these two guys have to go fight, I guess, Joe, to see if they can get him to sway his vote.
If he's changed his tune. So that's hanging out there. So if you are a business who just bought an F-250 or an F-350 and you use it for work, I was just imagining while you were talking, driving an F-250 out to date night, throwing the valet the keys.
That's right. Here you go. Big diesel.
Don't park it next to anybody else. No, you use it for work. You might be able to take advantage of this. And if you've got kids under 18 or under 7, like me, you might be able to take advantage of this. So watch this space.
So we're just kind of watching this as we go forward.
I can't file my taxes today anyway.
No, you can't file. First day's 29th is the first day to e-file. So even if you have, say you just have a W-2, maybe a little bit of information like that, you could technically file on the 29th, be ready to go. January 29th, first day.
But you always remind people, just hang on.
Just a little bit, just for the sake of, I forgot about that.
Yeah. Because, I got an alert from the crypto website that I've used, and they said, your W-9, or what is it, your 1099. And then they said, wait a minute, you didn't make enough money.
Yeah, we're not going to issue.
You actually probably lost a bunch of money. We don't get credit for that, do we?
Speaking of that, that's the other thing, is there are now crypto ETFs. So whereas before you physically had to go buy
I had to go
Bitcoin,
to Coinbase.
And you had to go to Coinbase and do your purse and all that kind of stuff. There are ETFs that are out there currently. So it's funny, and again, not funny after the fact, but 2 weeks ago, it turns out on Twitter there was this news flash from the SEC saying, hey, it's approved. These guys are good to go. And it turns out that the SEC got hacked.
Oh, no.
Somebody got on their account and actually jumped the gun and said that it was ready to go. And so the SEC had to kind of put their tail between their legs and say, oops, we got hacked, and that's why you need, cybersecurity protection, blah, 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 just in case. But they did come about a week later and they've released, I think there's a half a dozen ETFs, electronically traded funds, that are Bitcoin.
And that makes a part of them.
Digital assets, I should say. They do reach out and they buy it. So now that you got that, again, we've talked about this.
It's just so volatile.
Yeah, Jamie Dimon from J.P. Morgan said, it's a Ponzi scheme, don't ever get into it, blah, blah, blah. But yet the whole time he was petitioning to the Securities and Exchange Commission trying to get an ETF created for J.P. Morgan.
But if anybody's going to wet their beak on it, it's going to be us.
Oh, sure.
But it's one of these things where I heard somebody talking on the radio last week. They said, look, this isn't for your 401k. This is if you have.
Yeah, this is
like the money you would take to the casino.
Less than, I say, portfolio size, maybe 1%, maybe 2% max that you allocate.
Just the fun money kind of of stuff.
Because it could blow up in your face.
Big time.
And you could make money hand over fist, but I'd be more leaning towards the blow up in your face side.
And I'm always fascinated how, who was that girl, talk about Ponzi schemes. The girl with the black turtleneck, and she talked like this, and she had Elizabeth something.
Yeah.
And she had that machine.
Did the blood testing. Yeah, fake blood testing.
She was worth $6 billion, and then overnight she was worth nothing.
Zero.
It's like, how does money or wealth or whatever just disappear into thin air like that? If my bank account disappeared, somebody robbed it and walked off with, $70. That's all I got out there. But how does wealth like that disappear? Well, with crypto, it just
poof. It's there one day. It's not in favor of the next.
We thought it was worth $40,000 for a Bitcoin. Today, we only think it's worth $20,000. Yeah. And then poof, 20 grand in equity or whatever. Yeah. Goes up in smoke.
I haven't seen, because we haven't got deep into the 23 tax season yet, but in 22, I bet you 20-30% of the client base had a transaction in crypto, and every one of them resulted in a loss.
In a loss.
It was maybe $500-800 max, but they all resulted in losses.
That was a bad year for Bitcoin. It's back now, apparently. But don't take my word for it. Consult your financial planner.
Exactly.
Give him a call now. It's Jeff Zufall, 636-394-5524. I would be very interested as you start doing people's taxes over the next 2 or 3 months.
See if what the 23 numbers look like.
And I always ask you anecdotally, all these questions about taxes. What do you see? Because you literally see people's taxes. You can do a cross reference of what's going on in the economy, from rich people to people like me who are barely scrapping 2 nickels a time. So
that fell out of my pocket. No.
Right? Yeah, I stole those 2 nickels. We'll get an idea from you of what 2023 looks like.
We'll get deeper paper. Into the I mean, it just.
As you get your eyes on
slowly, people are starting to drop paper.
You don't have to use names, but if you want to tell me off the air, a couple of names of people who really did well this year, I'll go ask for a handout. Other places in the news, they gave the IRS a bunch of money to hire agents to go and claw back taxes.
Yeah.
And what is the latest on that?
So the latest on this one is kind of nice. They have collected $500 million in back taxes. So this is part of the package where they got $80 billion to go hire people. Unfortunately, the ceiling debate took $20 billion away.
The debt ceiling, one of the Republicans' demands was, we'll sign off on this if you take $20 billion back from the IRS.
And now, and I thought that this passed, but apparently it didn't. It's either $14.8 billion or $15.8 billion for aid to Israel that is sitting out there, and somehow it's in some package being discussed as we speak. But they don't know where to get the money from, so they're going to take it from IRS funding on top of that.
So they're going to try to take even more money
now
from
there's
the IRS.
$35 billion that goes poof. Now, they have gone out, and I guess they're proving their worth, if you want to call it that. And basically, they said that they pulled grand total. It's $520 million from, I'll call it, people who are tax delinquents, tax dodgers, whatever you want to call it. And what
I didn't realize I had to pay taxes.
Yeah. So, and this was Friday, and this is going back to the 22 upgrade where they got the first piece of the cash, hired people, and now they have agents out doing it. So again, what they're saying is, and it came from the Inflation Reduction Act, which had nothing to do with inflation, just a fancy name.
You always like to remind people that.
Because people are like, oh, what does save us in inflation? And it's like it didn't reduce anything.
Yeah.
But what they're saying, again, is they are saying that the IRS and the Biden administration are saying that they pledge that there's no increases in audits for people that make less than $400,000 a year.
Okay.
So cross-section.
There would be a lot of us.
There's a lot of people. Mm-hmm. If you say, hey, it's a 2%, 3%, risk. Now, if you do something stupid, you're going to get audited, and you probably deserve to. But they're saying just in general that it's $400,000 or less is what they're saying.
And just to remind everybody, because I know that there's certain talk shows that are out there that are saying, certain commercials, the IRS is coming after you. They're not here to harass, regular people like you and me. They're going after people who just downright didn't pay their taxes.
Either didn't pay, dodged the system, and I say dodged it, try to work in cash, whatever the question may be. That's who they're really looking for at the end of the day.
Is it people like me who? Well, I had no idea that I'm being honest with you guys. I had no idea I owed that in taxes. Or is it people that said, I'm going to do this?
Yeah, it's more.
That.
It's more that gets back into this. The LLC. You got to declare if you have a business.
Oh, I started a business so I can take write-offs on everything.
Yeah, and if you look at that on Instagram, I laugh at them all the time. No, I think it was Chase is not going to give you a $150,000 loan just because you have a bank account or a business out there. There's hoops you have to jump through to be entitled to that $150,000.
So this is for the schemers.
Yeah.
This is $500 million that they got back from the schemers out there.
Or people who literally blew the system off. You got a 1099 sent to you. You
just didn't pay.
You just didn't report it.
Yeah.
They'll catch you, and it's a matter of coming forward. It takes them... I say 18 months. Used to take just shy of a year. If you missed a 1099, you'd get a really nice letter from them saying, "Hey, you owe us money."
Yeah.
Now it's about 18 months is what it takes.
And here's another thing. They gave them $20 billion, but they only collected $500 million. Well, maybe they're just ramping it up.
And that's what they're saying. They are just ramping it up. They're getting the wheels in motion. And they really went after hedge funds. Giant partnerships, stuff like that.
These are the guys that
the big
have hired lawyers to prevent that from happening.
And I think some of them are just like, hey, write them a check, call it a day. Yeah. So, but again, as this gets bigger and bigger, if the funding holds on, we'll see how that pans out.
And then one last thing in the news before we go to commercial break: government shutdown. It seemed to avoided it for now.
Yeah, for now. I think it's a short term. I think it goes to March.
Kick the can down the road.
Yes.
To March. What happens? We'll have to relitigate this all in March. But what happens if the government shuts down in March? In the height of tax season.
So what they're saying is they keep, I think their quote was critical systems in place. Question is what's critical?
The question is we don't have any money. Well, how do we get money? From taxes.
Yeah.
So are they going to turn off the faucet?
Yeah. Well, that's the question is is it everybody but the IRS stays in service, if you want to call it that, or do they cut it down to bare bones skeleton crews to keep it operational? That we don't know. But their response was, hey, if this really does shut down, we keep critical infrastructure in place. So good corporate response, but
and it's always they always say the government's going to, and then at the 12th hour, sometimes in the 1 a.m. hour,
they rob Peter to pay Paul and pull it off. So.
But it did happen. I think it happened twice under the Trump administration,
where they let it go. I think it was 7 days in one case,
which is whatever, but they still probably lost hundreds of millions
huge.
Of dollars.
Just the production alone, whatever that equates to is phenomenal. So we'll see.
And a lot of people say, it's an election year and nobody wants to have a government shutdown on their watch, whether it's the president or Congress. So they'll probably cut a deal. But what happens if the government shuts down while we're just trying to pay our taxes?
Because it could come to a screeching halt.
Wow, that's reassuring. We don't know.
We don't know. So.
All right. Well, we'll watch this space again. And just to reiterate from the beginning of the conversation, this segment, watch this space for that child tax credit and those business tax changes, because that could take effect within a week or two.
Exactly, and if it does, it takes maybe a week to get the infrastructure built, which is what the heck does it mean and how is it coded within a tax program?
And both of these things, Jeff, I always say sometimes the government throws us a bone, and we get beneficial tax laws.
Exactly, something that's worth Yeah.
Both of these things would be beneficial to us.
Yes, on both sides.
So wait, get your paperwork together, get everything together, get ready to go, but just don't file yet because there can be some. And if we did file and they make a change, we could do an amendment.
You can do an amendment, just
adds
adds paperwork and all that fun stuff to the process.
I don't want to make you do that because full disclosure, Jeff is my tax guy. He's my financial guy. He's my tax guy. And it can be yours too. 636-394-5524. That's the number to Capital Advisory Group. That's where Jeff sits. CapitalAdvisoryGrp.com. Let's go to commercial break. When we come back, planning tips for 2024. It is a new year. What can we be doing to maximize, get a full 12 months worth of tax keepings in 2024? I always say, I got my FSA started in June, and I kicked myself the following April.
Yes.
That I didn't set it up for the whole year.
Whole year, yeah.
So now's the time to set it up for the whole year. We'll tell you what some of those things could possibly be in your situation when we come back. It's Keep What's Yours with Jeff Zufall on the Big 550 KTRS.
The views and opinions expressed in the following paid program are those of the host, callers, and guests, and do not necessarily reflect the views or positions of this station, its management, or owners. Keep What's Yours continues with Josh Gilbert and Jeff Zufall.
Back on the show, back to Keep What's Yours with Jeff Zufall. We've got a couple more minutes left here to just say, it's the middle of January, coming up late January. Just hang on to your tax returns.
Yes.
Wait and see
Just
if
a little bit
laws
longer.
go through. You got kids, hang on. Maybe the child tax credits will be reinstated or beefed up a little bit. You don't want to have to file an amendment. You just hang on a little bit longer, and then we'll see where it goes. But it's also the time of the year to start planning for the rest of the year.
Yes.
I mentioned this going into break. We set up an FSA for my son for his daycare, and we set it up in June. We get to your office, and we're going over our taxes the following year, and you said, well, you guys kept this much money. And I was like, awesome. And he said, but if you had it running the full year, it would be double that. Now, I'm kicking myself. Why did we wait until June to get this thing set up? I wish we would have started January 1.
Exactly.
Now's your chance to start in January to get these things rolling so you get a full 12 months of tax savings.
Yes.
Rather than wait, I'll do it after tax season.
Exactly. Or, then after tax season becomes, July, and then after July becomes September, and then you're like, oh, man.
Summer's always busy.
Yeah, I got to hurry up and do this.
Yeah.
So,
and now you got 3 months of tax savings when you could have had a full 12. So what are some of the things that we want to set up now and just get rolling so we get a full year's worth of tax savings? So
what you want to do is look to see, does your employer have a 401k, a 403b if you're an educator, a 457f if you're a government employee. And if you don't have any of those, can you do an IRA, a Roth IRA? Something that you could do to start today, and it doesn't cost that much, to where you could and you don't have to max it out first year, but at least attempt to as you go forward.
This is what I did, Jeff. I did 6%.
Yeah.
And I just said, did that kill me?
Yeah.
And it clearly didn't.
Because really the net effect's probably 3% out of pocket, honestly, at the end of the day, because of the pre-tax benefits of it. So, again, that's what you want to look for is, what choices do you have out there that you could actually start to put money away? And, again, you don't have to attempt to max it. But if you're over age 49, you get a catch-up provision. So you get an extra $7,500 on top of everything else that you've done to catch up to help you for retirement. So, again, if you max out your 401ks, but yet you don't tell your employer or the trustee, hey, I want to do a catch-up, usually they just turn it off. And as an individual, you just get a little bit bigger paycheck, and you go, oh, I didn't think anything of it. Great, I got raised or something.
Right.
And then it turns out you maxed out your 401k, but they didn't take it to the next level, which is the catch-up provision. So I've seen that a couple of times.
Like, I'll do a couple things around here at the station, and my paycheck, fill in for McGraw, or I'll fill in for Kearney, or do this or do that. Maybe I take a week off, and I don't get the yard sale in. And my paycheck is never the same.
Yeah.
every 2 weeks because it's always a little bit more, a little bit less.
Yeah.
So if my catch-up provision doesn't kick in and all of a sudden I'm seeing $50 extra more on my pay, I might not even notice.
You don't even pay attention to it sometimes.
Don't even pay attention.
Some people are like, oh, my gosh, I didn't. But that's the concept, is if you can use it to your advantage, they're putting the rules out there.
You don't want an extra $50 because it could be worth that much
Just
more.
Put it towards, exactly. So
Socking it away.
So that's the big one. And again, there's new rules. There's all kinds of different adjustments out there. But at least start something and get it going. So that'd be the first one out of the box. And then this is for the older people. Look to see review what is your RMD, required minimum distribution. What is it? How do you want to take it?
And what is the age now?
So a lot of people were at 70 and a half, and we're basically 73. 72, 73 is the number.
So if you hit that number, the government said, you've held on to your money long enough, we want your taxes.
We want a piece of it.
They start making you take it.
Forced out. And so the question is this, if you're a charitable individual and you're coming up, this is the first year of your RMD that you have to take it, quit writing checks to charity out of your checking account, use your RMD, use that to give to the charity. It counts for your required amount, but you don't pay tax on whatever you gift away.
Now tell me this, though, and I know that you say, well, it really just depends on how much is in your IRA. What does a required minimum distribution look like in your experience anecdotally? Is it $500? Is it $1,000?
It depends, because it's basically based upon whatever your 1231. So like if we're sitting today putting it together and this is your first year, it's based on December 31st of 2022's number for your account balance. And there's a factor, and the IRS has a table, and it's about 3.65%. So say 3.5% of your account balance has to be forced out.
Everything that's in there.
Every IRA. Now, again, you could pool it all together and say, I'm going to take it all from one account. You could say you have 4 different IRAs. You'd have to add them all up, do the calculation based upon all 4 of them added up, and you could take it, divide it equally. You could prorate it by the account sizes, each account, or you could take it all from one. They don't care, as long as you take out whatever that number is at the end of the year.
So if you have $100,000 saved up in your IRA, you'd have to take out $3,000.
Yeah,
if you have
$3,500.
If you have $1 million saved up in your IRA, you got to take out $30,000.
Yes.
And that's not monthly? That's just for that calendar year?
It's just for that calendar year. So remember 2022. So the funny part is 2021. Or let me back up for a second. 2022 was a terrible year in the market, okay? So the markets went down value-wise. So if your account was subject to securities, it went down in value, which means you have a lower account balance on 12/31/2022. So when they did the calculation for last year, you got paid less or had to take out less. 2023, the markets came back to life. Your calculation is 12/31/23. For this year, for 24. So your account balance went back up. So now you'll be forced to take out even more money because you made money in the market.
Mm-hmm.
So
it's
kind of a weird calculation, but it's whatever the total, round up all your IRAs at the end of the year, and that's basically do 3. And then it's age based. So the older you get, the higher your withdrawal rate is.
And this is interesting because, theoretically, you save that money. You got that $1 million in the IRA because you need it in retirement.
Exactly.
But what if, I'm living off Social Security, the house is paid off, I had some other accounts, I'm fine. The government's making me take out $30,000
exactly.
And I don't need it.
You don't want it and you don't need it.
I don't want it, I don't need it, and I got to pay taxes on it. If the government's forcing me to take it out, is there a tax beneficial way for me to do that?
Not really.
Okay.
I mean, honestly, it is what it is. Now,
but if I'm making charitable donations,
that's one way to do it.
The $5,000 I'm tithing to the church,
exactly.
I can take straight out of there.
Straight from there. They send you the check, but the check is made payable to the church. You go hand deliver it to the church. That $5,000 that you gifted, you don't get a deduction for it.
But it's not taxable.
But it's not taxable.
The
counts for
church gets it.
Yeah, counts for your $30,000, but yet the church gets it, but you don't have to pay tax on it.
Perfect.
So it helps reduce your
now
tax.
I only have to pay taxes on $25,000.
And then the other flip is there's what's called a qualified QLAC, which basically says it's an annuity. You could hide $110,000 that's taken out of your IRA account, and you don't have to. It's not used in the calculation for your RMD until you're like 80. I think it's 10 years or age 80, whatever's longer. So again, at the end of the day, you could move $100,000, 110 over,
delay the inevitable,
and you're delaying it basically.
Yeah. So there, if you have an RMD, and maybe this is the first year you have to start it, or maybe you did one last year or the year before that, and you're like, oh, this is, I don't need this money, and they're just making me take it out. Talk to Jeff.
Exactly.
Just say, what are my options? What can I do here? This is what I do. This is what I tithe. This is what I donate to charity. This is what I do. They're making me take this out. What can I? Is there a better way of doing this? And Jeff can help.
And then prior to RMD age, so say prior to 72, 73, do you do Roth conversions each year to try and reduce your account balance?
That's a big one.
And that's the big one where that run maybe at 65-ish, working up to this, you start to convert quickly to get from point A to point B.
And how much can we convert every year? Well, that's a math equation that Jeff can do for you.
We wait till basically the end of the year so we know where your income is, and we can tax bracket plan, saying, hey, take out this or don't take this out.
And that's the thing. Most of this stuff is just math. And full disclosure,
lots of it.
I'm bad at it. So Jeff knows the equations to plug in. He can help you out here. 636-394-5524. Number one, he knows the tax code, so he can tell you what to take advantage of. And number two, when you say, how much can I convert to Roth without hitting myself into a new tax bracket, let's run the numbers.
Yep.
He can run the numbers for you as well. So he'll tell you what's out there to take advantage of. He'll tell you the math on how much to convert. He'll do all of that for you, and he'll do your taxes on top of it. 636-394-5524, and we'll be seeing a lot more of you, Jeff. Because now it is tax time. But you can make an appointment with him, CapitalAdvisoryGrp.com. Capital Advisory Group. That's Jeff Zufall. I'm Josh Gilbert. Thank you so much for tuning in again this week. And again, if you want to set up an appointment with Jeff, you want to go over the RMD stuff with him, 636-394-5524. Thank you, Jeff.
Thank you.
You've been listening to Keep What's Yours with Josh Gilbert and Jeff Zufall, Senior Tax Strategist and Wealth Manager at Capital Advisory Group. To learn more, call 636-394-5524 or visit CapitalAdvisoryGrp.com. The views and opinions expressed in the preceding paid program are those of the host, callers, and guests, and do not necessarily reflect the views or positions of this station, its management, or owners.